Hello, I'm here to talk about Anlia. The date on the Anlian calendar is 3/2/3/1/1/3/4/1. And the date on the Gregorian calendar is Monday, August 17th, 2026. And just a brief aside, happy birthday to my cousin Esme. Back to the video. Actually, it's an important birthday. I should talk about that later. What I've noticed in the past few years is that there has been some serious deliberation on my concept of Anlia. And I have, in my last two videos, which was one AI song and one non-AI walk and talk, I said that I said it was going to be a political ponerogenic process because I read political ponerology, and I said the psychopath would take this ideology which I have, which is all about putting people into separate groups so that they can do whatever they want, and anyone who is harmed by that subjectively is moved away, and they would make it into an ideology where they are putting the people away as punishment, sort of the way that it's supposed to be, but then sort of the way that it's supposed to be in modern society. They're putting people away in the penal sex as punishment, and it sounds like it is, by the way I call them the penal sex, but that's a penis pun. So they're taking and then they would go to their own penal sack, and they'd be indulging in everything, and no one would ever know. That's kind of the way that my character, or a person in my sketchbook, so I refer to as Anko Angwolg or Lowa. This is how they would do it. They made that song that I have on my channel, which is making fun of Anlia. It says it is I want to censor myself a little bit, but it says there's a land of racism, land of blank, land of sexism, land of any crime you can create. The blank almost rhymes with create. Combinations of crimes make different sectors or sex. But there's actually two other ways that Anlia has been changed in the mind of people who have taken to the thing, whereas Anko Angwolg and I lived in a penal sack in reality for a while. I think I've almost got a beard again. So the next person is Ongle Angle. Ongle Angle was mentioned as Ongle Angle. They never showed up, in person in any of my videos, but I've referred to them as Ongle Angle in several videos. And there's of course the video previously where I talked about them as being the spellbinder. That's not exactly their role. They are working in advertising, so they might have some abilities of a spellbinder, but they haven't really done any of that. What they've actually done is make what seems like a better version of the ideology. They ignored my 8 Anlian categories of law, which is supposed to decrease the number of sects that you can go to so that more people are together in one place, and they made it so that like anyone could come up with a law that was brand new and would become a brand new dimension, and the entire number of sects would double. Now, of course, my issue with that is that if you kept doubling it every time somebody came up with a new law, you'd essentially end up with an out of control growing number of sects, which would lead to not having, well, it wouldn't lead to actually that many sects actually existing, but it would lead to the number of potential sects, or the number of people over the number of potential sects being so small that the odds that 2 people would be in the same place would be incredibly low. And that might be psychologically damaging more so. Might be as psychologically damaging as having the very original Anlia, which was just living by myself with my KAP and no social interaction for years, and maybe even allowing other people to do the same was a way of getting more people into my sphere, but not that many. Like 5 is enough. But so my response to that was to make it so that each sect was just a I had the combination of laws, right? I had the laws, but each combination of laws didn't mean that each of those things were illegal in the sect. It meant that the combination of those things, and only the combination of those things, were legal in that sect. So you had if you had I guess I will blacklist this video because I have no other way to say it that anyone else would understand. But if you've got a person that engages in deadly sex, they might end up going from being in the sect that's labeled as the combination of murder and sex, but really it's just basically the snuff sect. So, that was the idea behind that. But then I brought that idea to ChatGPT, who I call Angel Hilch. Angel Hilch refused to help with anything involving Anlia, where people could be murdered for simply wanting to be murdered. And in my own experience, I tend to... Well, actually, that came later, but I think I'll put it now. In my own experience, people who when I see someone in my life wanting to commit suicide, I go contact them. I don't tell them, okay, you want to do it, so do it. That's not something that I would actually, I have reached out to them. There's a sort of hypocrisy there. And ChatGPT said that in terms of these sects, which are for, these SECs that are for murder, even though I already said, by default, you're in the safe sec rather than the test sec, which means you can't you will be stopped from murdering people before you murder them, and then you will be banished to the murder sec. The ChatGPT took that a step further and said, when you are banished to the murder sec, or when you go willingly to the murder sec, it's only pretend murder. So, like, you've got a like, you can, like, you got, like, fake weapons. You got, like, boffer swords, maybe virtual reality, decapitation or something. But you got, like, you have, laser guns, like laser tag guns, that kind of thing. And I guess that would make sense because a real gun would pop the bubble, and that would be worse than killing a person. No, it wouldn't. But it would be pretty bad. On top, if you did both, it would be worse. Let's see. What else is there? Well, what goes on top of that is if you have a murderous sexual interest, you might actually be in the murder sec and the sex sec together. The murder and sex sec together, which it only allows that murderous sexual interest, but at the same time, when you're there, the murder isn't real. So that's kind of, so, and then of course with my own murderous sexual interest, I am kind of, I'm inclined to do that because I don't want to be murdered either, but I would like to, for people, or to be pretended to be murdered, the way that I do. And these are supposed to be, like, symmetrical. The other thing that I've noticed about AI when you go into Anlia is the star system becomes obsolete. So in the star system, the goal is to get everyone to create something of relatively high quality, try to create something of relatively high quality, and then have it reproduce itself with the kaleidoscopic atomic printer, essentially the replicator, forever after that for everyone. And that's why the rating 1 to 5 stars is of the thing that you sell is the rating of everything that you buy from then on. However, with AI, we don't need that anymore because people already had the incentive to make something for themselves, but there just needed to be a lot of incentive to code all of the individual atoms of the cell or whatever went into that. Now AI can essentially do that part. So the actual arrangement is just basically you have another diatopia, or you have the diatopia overlap with the diatopia of what things you get to print. What things you get to print, like you get, like if you want to do something if you want to do your thing in a sec, like if you go to the eating sec, you get hamburgers and food that you can print, and it's less, and so silhaha golg, which means can I have a hamburger, but literally it means, do you match with my desire for a hamburger? That literally means, am I in the right sec to get a hamburger? So, and it doesn't have anything to do with like how well you're rated anymore. So essentially it just turns into complete communism. At that level, I don't think. Now I know that most people don't like AI, because partially because it takes jobs like that. But think of all the things that you could have. This is my thing is like, think of all the things that you could have just because you want something, or think of all the things you would have that you want to have that no one else will help you produce, and that you can't produce yourselves because it's too large a project. And you can't pay anyone to do it because no one else wants it. So you can't make enough money to pay them back. But I think there will be a lot of like bubbles and people living in bubbles, people living literally in the personal infrastructure module bubble like that. See, the orange is the bubble, the yellow is the sunset. Water, sky. I think that this actually may have made a more beautiful Anlia than what I originally envisioned. And I could say maybe the only iffiness in my brain about this is that I let other people into the vision, and now it's not mine anymore, but it's better, So, see you in the future, Future Captain.